Bum, ba-na-na, na, 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 na. Bum, ba-na-na, na. Okay. If you are here with us, please say something that you can hear us. Say hi. I don't know if the microphone is working. We're doing this through YouTube. We tried, or we did one yesterday. And there are some things I would change. So this is 2.0. Can you hear me now? If you could say something in the chat. Can you hear my microphone? Dun, 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 dun. And we will pull up our channel. We are there. And concurrent views on the LIBR. Bum, ba-na-na-na. How should I do this? I'm going to put this as a full page. Actually, not a full. We're going to do something like this so I can still see the chat if anybody that would like to comment. Then what happens if I click on this and I do that?
When they first come here, are just getting adjusted to being in high school.
I can hear that.
Have their academics.
Can you hear
in our
that?
self-contained classroom, they're having their academics that are focused more on functional skills, like functional math, functional English, being able to fill out an application.
I'm going to turn
those
that up.
In social studies,
Hello,
history,
hello.
like current
Gonna
event
turn
times,
me
what's
down a
happening
little
now,
bit. I don't need to be yellow
social
lining.
studies, weather and how that affects, the climate
Okay.
and food and, those kinds of things are what they're kind of learning, those daily life kind of skills. As they get older and we start getting into the work component, that's what we're focusing on, is getting them ready. They're going to leave here with a job. If the family is supportive and the family can get the services that they need to make that happen, then a student will leave here with a job.
Use a stream bit rate of 4,500 kbps.
And attaining employment.
The biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that is easily corrected is employer education. The employers need to understand that these kids can be successful and to look past their limitations and see what the positive things they can bring to the business. And every business that I partner with, they're always like, we gain so much from this experience.
To begin, click on the File menu. Go to Settings. In here, select the Output tab.
Okay.
Now just change the video bitrate value to a value of your choice. I'm going to change mine to 4,000 so that I have better quality streams.
This is
Once you are finished, click Apply. Then click OK. Alright, and that's all there is to it. You now know how to change the bitrate in OBS Studio.
That was easy. I wonder if that worked. So I noticed that yesterday we were here at about 2,500 blah blah blah, and my audio was laggy. It would like clip out every few seconds, try and catch up. So we just went ahead and changed that, and now I'm going to go to my YouTube on my phone and see if that has changed at all and if it's coming through a little bit better. So we will switch accounts there to Alabama Care, and we will go to the channel. So we're live. I'm going to take off my headphones just to see if I can hear it. Yes. I do not hear the clipping from yesterday, so we know how to do that now. That's pretty cool. Okay. Nice. That worked. All right. Today we are going to be doing video clips of past broadcasts. And I will show you how we're going to do that on the past broadcast in the comments section and how we're going to transfer that over to the website. So my question for you, and I would appreciate some input for the one concurrent. See right here, this number's 2. I am 1. Somebody else is out there with me. I want to know which video you want to go over today and create individual clips for. So I will pull the video list. How about we just take it one line? I'll give you either. We can do vocational eval. I'll put this in the chat. What do you want? We can do either vocational eval, or we can do Lorenzo and Chris in an Isable one. Or we can do how about Rachel Hughes? Okay, so you tell me which one you want, and we will go over that one, and I will show you how we're putting that on Alabama Care. Let's sign in. I'm going to find out my login from the other computer. Well, I keep this up, so I'm looking for your answer right here. If I don't see anything for another couple minutes, I'll just go ahead and do the work. You guys can chime in whenever you'd like. Looking for Wix, is Alabama Carolina. Okay, got it. All right, let's go to Wix. Already have an account. Log in. Select an edit site. Do not remember. Site actions, edit site. So this is what you will find at alabamacare.org. And this is our landing page currently. We have Voc Eval. Okay, so we're not going to do Voc Eval because we've already done that one. All right, so let's go with Rachel Hughes. We'll do Rachel Hughes today.
I'd like to welcome everybody back today, Alabama Care. We are here in Wetumpka, Alabama, and I hope I said that correct.
You did.
With Mrs. Rachel Hughes, and Mrs. Hughes is the director and an advocate with the State of Alabama Client Assistance Program. And at this point, I'd just like to hand it back over and allow you to.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to Facebook. We're going to search for Alabama Care, Rachel Hughes. Alabama Care, Rachel Hughes. Let's go to posts. And here we are. We are going to copy the description and put it on edit video. So we'll put it right there. We will save this so people can have the same search. Partially supported by. We can get rid of all this. This is unnecessary. And let's continue saving. Okay, so there's our video. Let's get a new window up.
Like to welcome everybody back today, Alabama Care. We are here in Wetumpka, Alabama, and I hope I said that correct.
You did.
With Mrs. Rachel Hughes, and Mrs. Hughes is the director and an advocate with the State of Alabama Client Assistance Program. And at this point, I'd just like to hand it back over and allow you to introduce yourself.
Well, you've said pretty much about all of it. I've been with this agency for almost 25 years. And I roamed the whole state of Alabama and really enjoy the opportunity to meet lots of individuals and talk with them and helping them to get from one point to another.
So 25 years, is it, do you have a crew with you, a group of people that work at SACAP with you?
Me. And I have an assistant, part-time assistant that works with me.
That's a lot on your shoulders.
Yes, it is.
Now, you're originally from Alabama?
Yeah, I guess you would say that. My dad was
I feel like this view, we should bring the camera down. See, there's a lot of space left up here. Half the screen is ingredients and window. And we're on the bottom half of the screen. That should be closer to the
military,
top.
so
or
I
at least
roamed
the
a
middle
lot in the
two-thirds.
beginning years, and undergraduate at Troy University, master's from Auburn University, and then I've also had some training at the University of Tennessee.
I thought you were going to go Alabama there. I was like, oh, you're hitting all of it. That's too funny. So what exactly is the State of Alabama Client Assistance Program?
I work with people who may have a concern about their vocational rehabilitation program, or if they're involved in an
All right, so
independent
there's our
living
first
program.
point. What was it
have
again?
three
What is
independent
SACAP?
living program who may
Client Assistance. Too funny. So what exactly is the State of Alabama Client Assistance Program?
So 117. What is SACAP?
Program.
I work with people who may have a concern about their vocational rehabilitation program, or if they're involved in an independent living program. We have 3 independent living programs here in the state of Alabama. There's one in Mobile, one in Montgomery, and then there's one in Birmingham. And if anyone is participating in any of those activities, then I can get involved with them. With vocational rehab, it's mainly with the adult program. You know, Alabama Department of Rehab Services, you have early intervention, you have children's rehab, lots of different programs. And I work with the adult program. I don't work with the children's program.
Okay. Now the adult program, that kicks in at 18 there?
Actually, younger than that. It could be as young as 14. Usually around 16 is more like it.
Okay.
And with WIOA, the Workforce Investment Act, it has also kicked in, working a lot more with youth. And so vocational rehab has been picking that up a lot more and working a lot more with youth.
Yeah. Now we've had the opportunity to speak with some of ADRS VR personnel, and so it kind of mirrors that then. So as soon as they start working with, the 14 to 16-year-olds, you're right there for assistance as well.
That's correct. That's correct.
And the VR is for helping, train and gain employment, long-term employment there. What is independent living for somebody that might not fully understand that?
Independent living, it may be learning how to...
All right, there's our next one, 258, independent living. 258. Independent. You can spell it. Independent living. There we go.
to use the bus system. It may be learning how to cook. It may be using computer services. A lot of the programs may do some training with computers and just helping them to live independently. And, kind of really based on each individual need. I don't have a lot of complaints with the independent living. I am involved with the SILC, which is the State of Alabama Independent Living Council, and so I am there if they do need someone, and I can talk with them about the vocational rehab services. Sometimes people who are involved with our independent living centers, some of them may not be ready for employment at that time, or they may not want employment. They may just want independent living. And so that's another option for them to be able to do something more with their life.
Mm-hmm. Kind of feeling empowered there if there's something that they're going through and they want some help there with. Now, how many new cases would you say you take on a year?
It varies. I would
So let's go for 10. How many new cases a year?
say anywhere from 40 to 50. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but then I have the whole state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And just because someone calls in and talks with me, I don't always open a case. I try to get an idea of where they are and what their concern is, and talk them through it.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a situation where I ask them, have you talked with your vocational rehab counselor? Have you talked with a supervisor? If they have turned them down, trying to help them to understand why it was turned down. Maybe vocational rehab doesn't understand the request that they're making, and maybe the vocational rehab doesn't understand the request that they're making, and maybe the consumer hasn't explained exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I come in, and I'm able to talk with the consumer, talk with vocational rehab, get has turned them down. Vocational rehab counselor. Have you talked with a supervisor?
So I'm going to go 435. That's where I come in. I think that's a good thing right there. She goes exactly into what the problems you may be having, and how she and SACOP
for a service
provide that solution.
Vocational rehab has turned them down. And maybe the consumer hasn't explained exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I come in, and I'm able to talk with the consumer, talk with vocational rehab, get case material, and I can look at the whole scenario, and then I can ask thousands of questions to make sure that we all get on the same page.
Yeah, it sounds like a coach when you explain it that way.
That's exactly right.
It's like bringing a team together for a common solution.
Yeah, that's right.
So even though you say 40 or 50 open cases, it sounds like maybe a lot of the calls come through and it's like, hey, you might want to try this and that'll resolve it. And it doesn't have to be a full open case there.
That's right.
Which I think is really cool. And that could come in the form of, hey, I recommend.
Call in that say, I don't really want to work. I need my electricity bill paid. I need food. What can I do? How I need some help.
Yeah.
And so giving them suggestions to get some help in those lines. A lot of times you hear client assistance program, and a lot of people think that it's money that's going to be there to help them. And I have to explain, no, that's not what I do. Although, if that's what you're seeking, I can make some suggestions on where you might all money that's going to. You hear client assistance, get some help in those lines. A lot of times
I'm going to say 6. What SACOP is not.
You hear client assistance program, and a lot of people think that it's money that's going to be there to help them, and I have to explain, no, that's not what I do. Although, if that's what you're seeking, I can make some suggestions on where you might can go to get those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because until they can get their basic needs met, they're not going to want employment. they may not need to go and get employment at that specific time. They may need to take care of some issues that's on their shoulders at that particular time.
Yeah, you
Can't go to work if you don't have a good night's sleep. I agree with that. Oh, look here, this was the first broadcast that Nate did behind the scenes.
Just 1 second
I
here.
think this was his first, and he was telling me right here that we're having a little difficulty going to Facebook, that we might not have been live. Of course, we had this recorded, and I'm guessing that we uploaded it.
We're still recording, so don't worry about that.
There I go, saying that we're still recording, so don't worry about it. Oh, jeez. It's always one thing with technology. It's always one freaking thing, and then once you fix that thing, like 3 other things pop up. I spent, probably 10 minutes just, I'm going to show you this right here, make sure I'm getting it. Just on this little piece of, this little piece of equipment right before I went live today. There's a lot of buzzing going on. I hope it's coming through, right now. If anybody's watching, I would appreciate you just saying, yeah, it's clear, I can understand, or no, this is totally bonkers. Either way, we're going forward. Just as we are in this broadcast that we're watching.
And so I might give them some suggestions on how they can get those needs met.
And that's type of a thing where it may take some coaching, and a lot goes back on the shoulders of the individual. Like, hey, these resources are out there, but I can't walk you hand in hand through each one of these. I can help empower you, to find those things out. But then there are some cases where you will walk hand in hand.
Right, that's correct. I do a Disability Expo every year, and we just finished our 4th year.
Heads up, we are supposed to do the Disability Expo in April that she's talking about. However, with things going on right now and the virus, I do not know if that will be ongoing, but I think it's maybe, let me see here. Let me go to the docs. Let me go to docs and see broadcast. When was the Disability Expo? So yeah, the 23rd of April, we're supposed to be doing the Disability Expo. We shall see if that actually happens.
Specifically to bring in resources and do a directory so that our community knows. And since I'm from the Montgomery area, that's where we do it, and it encompasses Wetumpka, Ottawaville, all those areas there. And, of course, Vocational Rehab, Easter Seals, all those people are included in this. And then they walk away with a book. And so this is still the same thing. When people call me, they're looking for resources. And a lot of times I can pull out that book, if it's local, and give them information on who to contact.
Now, how is SACAP? Am I saying that right, SACAP?
Yes, that's correct.
How is SACAP funded?
We are federally funded, and
So let's go 1003. How is SACAP funded?
every year when I have completed my annual report, which is December, it has to be completed at the end of December, then I get my funding. Actually, I get a little bit starting in October, and then I get the rest of it after that. And every agency, I'm a very small agency. Alabama is not compared to some of, California, some of the larger areas. And so my money is not as great. And at one time when I first started the client assistance program, there was my director at that time. And then I did most of the advocacy. And then when he retired, I took on the whole thing. And it's just me. But my funding has dwindled a little bit. And so I can only hire a part-time secretary. And I love my technology. I love my phone, love my computer, because it helps me to get my work done along the way.
Technology, you said it earlier, when it's working, it's great.
Yeah.
SACAP really came out of a bill that came through the federal government there.
Well, yes, with the Rehabilitation Act of 1973,
Yes.
and that's where the Client Assistance Program was funded. And they said that consumers who are part of this program need to have someone that they can talk to. Consumers who are part of this program was Act of 1970. Well, yes, with the Rehabilitation Act.
1120. Rehabilitate. Oh, I don't want it. Rehabilitation. Act of. What did she say?
Act of 1973.
Of 1973.
Yes.
And that's where the client assistance
Reminds me, when you explain it that way, of ADAP.
yes, and vocational rehab, independent living, anything like health, those have to go in very basic to get it solved. You want to know what happens next.
Mr. Tucker.
Yeah, a request to the supervisor saying, and I'm not in agreement with this, and I would like an administrative review. And vocation is there counselor meet with the supervisor. We try to fight in court of the lawyer type things that they have to go in and fight in court. I don't do that. What I do is a very basic, I go in and meet with a vocational rehab counselor, meet with a supervisor.
So if SACAP is not going into the courtroom, this is your first step if like you're having difficulty and you want a guide or a mentor to kind of be a team lead on your plan and the agencies involved. So how am I going to phrase that for a clip?
Basic of the lawyer type things that they have to go in and fight in court. I don't do that. What I do is a very basic, I go in and meet with a vocational rehab counselor, meet with a supervisor. We try to get all on the same page and get everything solved. If we are not able to get it solved, you want to know what happens next.
Mr. Tucker.
Yeah. What happens next?
So I'm going to say SACAP is a great first step to finding solutions to your to the challenges you face in every day. The challenges you face navigating the disability community and agencies and community organizations. That's a long clip one, but we're going to put that there.
Is there a consumer, and then they'll rule on that situation. There's also mediation that they can do. And they have a mediator that comes in and tries to mediate between the consumer and vocational rehab in order to kind of basically do what I have already done, but it is taken up a notch.
It's just kind of an extra step. We'll try it again.
Yes, we'll try it again. And I feel like I do a lot of that. One of the things that she has implemented since she has become the commissioner for the Alabama Department of Rehab Services, Jane Elizabeth Burdishaw.
Shout out to Jane Elizabeth Birdshaw. She was one of our first, maybe number 10. I can't remember.
One of the things that she has implemented since she has become the commissioner is how to get to yes. And that's kind of the same thing when you do mediation is how do you get to yes, and you're trying to help the consumer to get the things that they need, but also follow the rules and regulations of the Rehabilitation Act and what rehab can and can't do. So that navigates where you can go with that. And then the very last thing is a fair hearing, and that's done with a hearing officer. We've got 5 in the state of Alabama, and the consumer will pick a hearing officer with the assistance of the lawyer for the Alabama Department of Rehab Services, and then they'll
Tuscaloosa. being federally funded.
That's correct. We are a sister agency, and we're a little bit different in that I handle vocational rehab, independent living, anything like that. And then ADAP, they'll handle school systems when people are not being treated fairly in the school or not getting services, maybe mental health, maybe if they're not getting the services they need. So they cover some of those things. They're going to do more of the lawyer type things that they have to go in and fight in court. I don't do that. We've got 5 in the state of Alabama, and the consumer will pick a hearing officer with the assistant, and then
Like some people will come and think that it's a one-stop shop for all the answers, and you kind of have to coach them, like as a consumer, for you.
yes, that is correct. Sometimes, can you buy me a Cadillac? No. That be getting a bus pass. It may be communication that the needs are of that. That's not going to happen, but can we sit down and look at what the needs are of that consumer and look at modes of communication?
Let's do 15 examples of challenges addressed.
It may be for vocations such we just have to be able to sit down and think out of the box. Whole state of Alabama, where you have rural areas and you have areas that are in the city, of course, you're going to have better modes of communication and transportation, whereas out in the small areas,
an hour outside of Montgomery.
That's right. And so you may have to get really creative of how can we do this.
So what is an example of being creative an hour outside of Montgomery? What does that look like for transportation?
A lot of times, I know transportation is a very big discussion, period, because a lot of our consumers don't have transportation. They don't have cars. It may be getting paying a family member to take them where they need to be. It may be maybe another consumer who needs a little bit of extra money to help them do what they want to do. Maybe paying them. Maybe they have transportation, but they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So it may be paying them so much of mileage is what vocational rehab does, is pay the mileage to help them get to where they're going. And then that's...
Mileage is federally reimbursed at, I believe, 57 or 59 cents a mile. As a provider in the state of Alabama, we're still being reimbursed 52 cents.
That can help.
Someone explain that to me.
Yeah.
Why
I like
is there a
that peer,
difference there?
Support there. If there's somebody else in the area that has transportation that understands, the scenario in the community, that's a perfect fit.
Something else that has just passed in law is that, and they were wanting to do this, maybe churches or other means that have
Like bigger
vans,
buses.
All right, we will.
to help them have it's a little bit of where they need to. It may be a lot
Outside of Montgomery. What does that look like? So what is an example of being creative an hour outside of Montgomery? What does that look like for...
Let's do 1615 transportation. 1615. What do you label it? Creative transportation.
Transportation.
A lot of times, I know transportation is a very big discussion, period, because a lot of our consumers don't have transportation. They don't have cars. It may be getting paying a family member to take them where they need to be. It may be maybe another consumer who needs a little bit of extra money to help them do what they want to do. Maybe paying them. Maybe they have transportation, but they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So it may be paying them so much of mileage is what vocational rehab does, is pay the mileage to help them get to where they're going. And then that can help them as well.
Yeah, I like that peer support there. If there's somebody else in the area that has transportation that understands, scenario in the community, that's a perfect fit.
Something else that has just passed in law is that, and they were wanting to do this, maybe churches or other means that have
like bigger buses, vans.
Yes, them being, it would be okay now for them to pick up someone and take them to an appointment, maybe to a doctor's appointment, or maybe take them for a job interview.
Yeah.
And then until maybe we can get them connected with someone else that might be able to help them out if they get this job.
I think that's a great idea because sometimes I'll go by churches and see a van just sitting there.
That's right.
And it could be, that the church is reimbursed for the mileage and, however that works out. And it'd be additional funding for the church and it would help the individual get to like doctor's appointments or whatever. It's a win-win all the way around.
That's exactly right. And I think that churches a lot of times are very willing to help if they know if there's a need.
Yeah.
First of all, it's
and
good
maybe
what
you
it
have to
is.
retro some of the vans or something, do some extra lifts and what have you.
Right.
But that's a great idea. I never thought of that. So for the age group that you typically work with, it sounds a little bit older, maybe 14 all the way through, as opposed you're not doing any early intervention stuff.
Right.
Most of the people that you work with are high school and above.
Right, that's correct. And there is no limit to whom I can help. They can be 97 years old. If they are still wanting employment and still going through vocational rehab services, and there have been a few older people that have utilized services, and rehab has been there to help them.
I think it's important to work. It keeps your mind fresh and keeps you on your toes.
That's right.
So let's
I
rewind
applaud
this
that
and go
90%.
to
Any early intervention stuff. So for the all the way through, as opposed you're not doing any early intervention stuff.
Right.
Most of the people that you work with
let's go 18-20 age group. 18-20 age group. And keep
are
going.
high school and above.
Right, that's correct. And there is no limit to whom I can help. They can be 97 years old. If they are still wanting employment and still going through vocational rehab services, and there have been a few older people that have utilized services, and vocational rehab has been there to help them.
I think it's important to work. It keeps your mind fresh and keeps you on your toes.
That's right.
So I applaud that 97-year-old going for it. I hope to be that person.
You and I both.
What are some examples that an individual or a family member, now, when people call or contact you, is it usually an individual or is it sometimes family?
Sometimes the family, a mother or father might call and say, hey, we're having some problems here. We don't feel like we're making any headway with vocational rehab. We feel like the wheels are just turning and they're not going anywhere, and here are our concerns. And so anyway, that can happen. And then I also have consumers that call me themselves. And the way that I handle that situation is because I'm separate from vocational rehab services, I have to have an information release form in order to talk with vocational rehab about whatever the concern is. Since they are serving that person, then I have to get their permission to contact vocational rehab services.
Gotcha.
And in order to get the case material, in order to know exactly what to do to help them. And so that's kind of what I do is when a person calls in, and you haven't asked this question, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into
Please.
it. When a person calls me, what happens next? We'll talk and we'll decide.
2012. When a person calls, what happens next? All right, I'm going to take a break of that audio because my landing page is still at B clips. So I want to make this the landing page. So maybe settings, make this your home page. Set. Got it. Let's reload it. Need to publish it. And now let's try it again. Okay, that works. So, which one is this be what? It was vocational eval. Can I move these so I can see more of this? Come on, Dropbox, you got to do better here, buddy. All right, so it'll be creating your future. No. Why don't we just go back to Facebook and see when it was. Alabama Care, vocational eval, and which one is it? And assistive technology. it is, we want to go to videos. This was on February 4th. February 4th. What was right after it? February 4th.
One. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody back.
February 4th. So that'll be... What are we at now? 80. We just did our 88th, so it'll be back here under EDR. Assistive tech. Alright, so that was B81. Alright, so now we can go back and in our editor we can manage pages and we can rename this. What did I say? B81. Let's just call it B voc eval dot assistive tech. Done. Now that we're here, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of the upcoming events. I'm going to leave those clips up there, but I am going to change the SEO of B81 to B81. Okay. We will publish that. Now, if I go to Alabama Care /B81, there we have voc eval and assistive tech. Should I also put, let's go to settings and SEO. How will it show up? That's, what's the last part? That's what's the page's title on search results and browser? Voc eval. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, it comes up at top. Okay, so that's good. All right, so now we are doing the landing. What we really want to do is copy this. So we're going to duplicate it and call it B31 dot saycap Rachel Hughes. Done. Let's go into the SEO of this and we're going to say B31. Good. Permissions, SEO. Okay, so now we want to publish this, and just to make sure, we're just going to go to the end and say B31. Well, page not found. Why not? Republish. We get an error. Oh, I got it as B83. That's not what we want. We want B31. Okay, so now we'll go back into B31 and we will say, yeah, I'm just going to say B31 again. B31 dot saycap dot Rachel Hughes. And then under that, I will say State of Alabama Client Assistance Program. And we'll bring this one out a little bit so that it doesn't bunch up. And actually, I imagine with a couple of those, go ahead and stop there. We'll highlight this so people can see that. Get me back in. Whatever you're doing there, don't do that. Okay, we will bold this and maybe make it a little bit bigger. How about that? That works. Save, publish, don't ask me again. Okay, so now we're going to go in here and we're going to kind of update these. Dashboard. We don't need the dashboard open anymore. We don't need that. Doing a start landing one more time. Only I can see that. That's fine. I should change the landing to have like a couple clips from each one. I'm not going to go into that now. We're just going to focus on the page that we're doing. We can do that later. And let's go back to our live stream.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open a case. You've already tried to talk with the counselor, or you've tried to talk with the supervisor. That hasn't been beneficial to you. So this is what I need you to do. Let's go ahead and do an intake. And what I tell people, it's a real simple thing. I can take it over the phone if you'd like. Name, address, telephone number, those kinds of things. Disability, we need some demographics because I need that for my annual report each year.
Oh, yeah.
And or if they would prefer, we have a website, www.sacap.alabama.gov, that they can go online and they can go ahead and fill out to me. They can sign it, and if they can scan it and send it back to me, I can get it immediately. We all people have sent it to me in. Even snail mail, that the technology isn't working. Sounds funny. That's what we're going to do, because I have to get that information. But because of technology, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, they can go ahead and we can fill out that application. We can get that information release form done that day. And if I'm on the road traveling, I can say you can either fill it out online or call my assistant, or I'll have my assistant call you, and let's get it going that way.
I think I'm gonna move this to the back.
That we're not. It
what
doesn't take a long time for my services to pick up and start. We try to be Johnny on the spot and get to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Do you feel like most people call in a dire situation, or they're kind of looking ahead? You say Johnny on the spot, that makes me feel like something is needed at this point, this week, or
a lot of times they're very frustrated, extremely frustrated. They have goals. They want to get somewhere. They want to do something, and they've been held back by a decision or no response at all, and they're really frustrated. They want to go to school. They want an answer. There are things sometimes that have to be done, and I've heard people say, well, I feel like I'm having to jump through hoops. Sometimes they are having to jump through hoops in order to. Vocational rehab requires certain things in order to send people to school. They have to have documentation. They have to have things filled out. They have to have Pell Grant information filled out, and so there is a process of getting all of these things done. And so, if a consumer doesn't do things on their end, then vocational rehab can't do things on their end. And so, when you sit down and talk with someone, and they say, "Yes, I have done all that. I just can't get a response when I call my counselor. They don't call me back." And I'm really frustrated right now. And in very few situations, but I have done this when I've had some really angry people. I might go ahead and contact Vocational Rehab immediately and say, hey, let's go ahead and get a meeting in place while we're getting all of the paperwork in order, so that because they're really frustrated.
Yeah, and you don't have to talk about anything in detail at that point. Just
No.
a heads up, hey, maybe next week or the following, let's get together
That's
and
right.
see. And I've seen that intake form online, and it's not very intimidating. It's pretty straightforward, and
Right. And then sometimes when I have a consumer that calls in, and after I've gotten the case material, I'm thinking, well, there's nothing in this case that shows anything that they're frustrated with. There's the counselor is not picking up on their frustration at all. And in a situation like that, you have to figure out, what's going on. Is the counselor just not understanding what's going on, or is the consumer just
Do it, live
not
stream is up.
expressing their needs or their frustration? You don't know until you sit down and start talking with both of them, and then you start pulling out information on both sides. And a counselor may say, "I didn't understand that at all." Consumer said, "Well, I said this. Well, that didn't lead me to think that." and so then when you start communicating, what you're hoping to do is build the relationship of the consumer and the counselor. And then my job is eventually to back off, and you hope that the relationship with the consumer and the counselor is stronger than what it was before. The counselor just not understanding what's frustrated with. There's the case material.
just tell us what you're having difficulties with and a little bit about yourself.
That's exactly right. And then I get the other information by talking with them and looking at the case material. Sometimes when I have a consumer that calls in, and after I've gotten the case material, I'm thinking, well, there's nothing in this case that shows anything that they're frustrated with. There's the counselor is not picking up on their frustration at all. And in a situation like that, you have to figure out, what's going on. Is the counselor just not understanding what's going on, or is the consumer just not expressing their needs or their frustration? You don't know until you sit down and start talking with both of them, and then you start pulling out information on both sides. And a counselor may say, "I didn't understand that at all." Consumer said, "Well, I said this. Well, that didn't lead me to think that." and so then when you start communicating, what you're hoping to do is build the relationship of the consumer and the counselor. And then my job is eventually to back off, and you hope that we're able to keep.
Sometimes it can feel like jumping through hoops, but those hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah.
And at some point it's like, hey, it's a struggle and it's a pain to do this, but by jumping through those hoops, you're able to communicate better sometimes. And everybody in your group that's with you and trying to get you to that goal you're going for, it'll be a stronger group.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the things I really like to, convey to the consumer, counselors really want their consumers to be successful. They really do. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way. And sometimes when I come in and I can say, your counselor is doing this, this, and this, and this, you may not see all the things that they're doing. But let me point out to you, they are doing these things, and they are wanting you to be successful. And sometimes that does make people feel a little bit better that, hey, maybe somebody does.
VR in check, but very frustrated time. Everybody would contact.
Consumers will say, well, so-and-so got this. How come I don't get this? And, or how come my VR counselor isn't telling me everything that I'm supposed to get? And what I have to explain to them is, every person that walks in through I don't get this. Consumers will say, well, so-and-so got this.
2708. Why don't I get that?
How come I don't get this? And or how come my VR counselor isn't telling me everything that I'm supposed to get? And what I have to explain to them is, every person that walks in through vocational rehab stores are different. And there are a lot of services that vocational rehab provides. And there's not just a checklist that says, okay, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? What's supposed to happen, and I will say sometimes this does not happen, is that a counselor really needs to listen to what their consumers' concerns are. And when they see a need, they need to be there to say, well, why don't we try this? Maybe we can provide this. Not happen is that a counselor really needs to listen to what the
2746. Need to listen.
their consumers' concerns are. And when they see a need, they need to be there to say, well, why don't we try it? And that doesn't always take place. And so that's when a lot of frustration happens with consumers, because they'll come in and say, well, I don't even know what I'm supposed to get. I don't know how I'm supposed.
Very true. There's a lot of, this is so big. There are a lot of services available that just aren't talked about because the individual doesn't know about them to ask about them. It's huge for the consumers to be there. I mean, the counselors to
Point B, and I don't know how to
fully
get
understand
there.
what their
And
goals are,
vocational
and present options for them.
Rehab has toolboxes, and they have evaluators. You know, a great resource that we have is Lakeshore Rehabilitation, and you have already talked with someone from there. But they are all over the state. They provide great evaluations, and they'll spend time to get to know their personalities, find out what they want to do, find out some barriers that they may have, and how do you overcome some of those barriers. If a person wants to go to school and they're reading on a second grade level, you know, that barrier is going to be very, very difficult for them to go to college, okay? So that's a barrier. What can we do that, can we do some certification training? Can we do something similar to what you want to do? So we have to think out of the box at that point in time and think about, well, if that door is closed right now, what's another avenue? If you want to do this specific thing, what's another way that we can help you get there? Maybe if you want to be a nurse, but you really can't because of the reading level or something else, maybe you can be an attendant. Maybe you can go in and work with people and get a certification that way. So I don't think that you should just say, no, I'm sorry, you can't go to school, so therefore there's not anything that you can do. You can say, well, there's a block right here, so what can we do next?
Yeah.
And I think that is, I call saving grace, because if you just tell people no, they can't do something, and you don't give them another way to get around to doing something else, you're shutting them down.
Yeah.
And I do believe people are employable. I do believe all people are employable, even those with the most significant disabilities. Now, will it take time to work with them? I do believe all people employable.
3006.
Are employable. Even those with the most significant are willing, I think, quote, and I put parentheses, you know, normal person going and working 8 hours a day. It may be someone going in and working 2 hours a day. Or what to do.
Contribute back to society.
And not only for that person with the disability, someone to come in and who really wants to be there and who really, that person with the disability, but
and you're a totally different person.
And not only for that person with the disability, but sometimes for the quote normal people, having someone to come in and who really wants to be there and who really is wanting to work, you know, that also shows to them, hey, you know, look what they're doing. And maybe I need to give a little bit more than what I've been giving, because they're giving their all.
We had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Keith Richards at Tzatziki's earlier. You know, our first few broadcasts, and he first store in the atmosphere, the individual. Now, when you meet, finding that you want to do,
and sometimes it's just getting in there, and you know, it takes a team approach. Have facilities working with them. It may take someone like Full Life Ahead that's working with them. it may take a be, and I firmly believe in the team approach. And that's how I do it. And anyone else is working with them. Let's say, for instance, I'm working with a person who has a visual impairment. We may invite someone who does mobility. We may have someone, there may be some other issues that we need to look at that makes a difference in their vocational rehab plan. So when you have access to all of the services that vocational rehab and the community offers, and you pull them all together and build that person up, it's kind of like a building block where this person, when you're sitting around the table and you said, well, we can do this and we can do that, and and you're building it up, and we need to do this evaluation, and we might need to do this, let's look at this natural support. And when you start doing this, everybody has a piece of the puzzle in order to make it complete. And that's what I get really excited about. Not just the fact that you have a person that comes in and wants to do something, but everybody's working together, including that person with the disability, saying what they want to do and how they want to do it, and then all of us putting our fingers together and kind of throwing that person up in order to help them succeed.
Now, do you see a lot of times a big difference in the individual from when you first started talking with them to maybe when you're no longer, working with them? Yeah.
I've only had an opportunity to see some people, because once I come in and we work through whatever the issue is, I don't always have access to that person any longer unless I see them. Now, I'm on the board of Full Life Ahead, and I work with a lot of individuals through it. And I see them grow from where they started, coming to camp at Full Life Ahead, and where they are now. And they're utilizing resources from the school system, vocational rehab, all the programs that have been provided to them, and also Full Life Ahead, all the things that they're teaching along the way. Person who just graduated from is now she's getting into the employment, and where she is in high school was looking at a person who, and I just recently was looking at a person who just graduated from high school, and to see where she started out and where she is now. Now she's getting into the employment sector, what comes next, and doing some training during the summer, and she's not going to go to college, but are there other things that she wants to do? Does she like working with people? But it's so awesome to see that she's able to take care of them, to see that.
Be a peer, someone around the state.
And if I see an individual, a lot of times I may invite them to camp, to become involved with Full Life Ahead, because it's going to give them an opportunity to have that. But that's a choice that they have to make. I can't hit them over the head that are out there.
Yeah, I feel like as an individual, if I want to go somewhere, I want something to change in my life, I would knock on the door of somebody that's been where I am currently, and has made that jump.
Yeah.
Supports as well. You mentioned some of the VR counselors reminded me of case management in developmental disabilities, ID, stuff like that.
Right.
So I kind of see that there. If somebody's saying, hey, well, how come I'm not getting these services, but my friend is getting these services? But you hit it on the head, I think, where you're out.
Wow.
Examples of somebody that would call in asking for assistance.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, I'll give you an example, and I tell you what I can't do. One time when I was in Birmingham, this was years ago, and I do go around to the independent living centers and the rehab facilities and talk with consumers that are involved in their programs. And I was sitting in a room waiting to see if a consumer wanted to come in and talk with me, and he comes running in, and he says, I need to talk with you. And I'm thinking, oh boy, okay, what is it? He said, there's no women to date in Birmingham. and I said, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. Well, he was sitting there waiting for his bus to come pick him up. So for the next 30, 40 minutes, we sat down and talked about the lack of opportunity to date. Well, there's not anything I can do in those types of situations. And I guess it just really depends on when a person calls in, and I try to get down to what they want, what their services are. And a lot of it is service oriented. I've been denied a service. I want to go to school, and then they're in school and send them to school and everything more. It takes months to get a person prepared. You have to make sure there's authorizations and there are different things like that. And so when a person comes in and they say, I don't understand why it's taking this long, it's because of the process involved in getting a person ready to go to school. What do they want to do? Or any opportunity or vocational now, when you have an 18-year-old, most of the time, they are not positive that they're what they want to do when they grow up.
I'm 32. I still don't know what I want to do.
Well, and
31
the
now.
opportunity of going to school
33
and
now.
doing the general studies and taking those kinds of things. And I do believe that the universities today offer classes that show some of those things. But that's why it tells vocational rehab, hey, I want to go to school. It's important to have those evaluations. And an evaluation may be an area of interest for them to look at. And so that's the reason why some of those things take so long, is because it's a building block. But those are some of the concerns that I see. Other phone call, I can't get a hold of my counselor. Just, do indeed call. It's very important. Give them a whistlers. The message I need is self-employment. People today, a lot of people are wanting to have their own business. And there's a lot of information that goes into setting that up, having a business. When you do, what help do you need from vocational rehab business? You've got to run understanding, talk to people who kinds of things, do I need a lot of technology information?
You mentioned that it feels like a lot of roadblocks. You said that a counselor could just sign somebody into college back in the day, the day before. And now it's a big process. Do you feel like those barriers, you kind of answered it along the way, but I felt like those barriers would hinder people from doing what they're doing. But you're saying that they're building blocks that will help you be better once you get there. Because even though someone signs up in your support.
That's exactly right. And, in the colleges, they have disability support services. People need to be aware of that. They need to know how to access that information, because it lists. So that helps with the process of getting them to that point. And if there are services that need to be given to them, extended time, maybe a recorder, maybe someone taking notes for them, that's going to help them to be successful in school. And so therefore those things need to be in place. And that's the reason why today there is just not a quick thing. It's not a quick fix. And a long time ago, we didn't have all of the extra services that we've got today.
Yeah.
So it's to help those people be more successful, to start school, but to fail.
So you need those supports. How do you, or I guess I should say, your average length of time with a case once it's open, from open to close?
Boy, that varies. There have been cases that I have closed in one day that we have, I felt
45.
cases that I have closed in one day. Boy, that varies.
The case one.
There have been cases that I have closed in one day that we have, I felt like an easy solution of just contacting the counselor and saying, I think you need to talk with them. I think that this can be solved. I may have opened the case, but after looking at the case material and all of that, I was able to say, hey, I don't think you need me for this. There, well, let's look at all the service okay, let's all sit down and talk about that, because they don't need to hear someone knocking vocational rehab. And the same is true for vocational rehab. They need to know that I am supporting them and helping them to fingers at any always they're working. Yeah, that's right.
3 years for somebody that supports there. I have a family month. Take her.
It's a different belief system, and if you look at a continuum,
carried out continually, a little bit longer than that. So I understand that those supports need to be.
And the services and may have hearing what I'm saying when I say that, and then you have those people who are on the far opposite continuum that I'm on, and they may think, these people right here are the people that we need to work with, and these other people I don't think have the skills necessary. And I guess in a way it takes all kinds, because if everybody was the way that I am and really wanting to that type of balance, the way that's body just has a. Or I don't feel like I can point fingers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Point that everybody's different and thinks differently. And it almost is like a matchmaking thing between the individual and the VR counselor. That if they're not on the same level,
when we've sat down at the table, and I'll give this example, and this has been years ago, and it happened up in the Huntsville area. And the person that I was working with,
weather in the
had
background
a
was
mental
getting bad
illness,
that day. That was
and,
funny.
you
I
know,
forgot about that.
sometimes with medication, medication sometimes has to be changed with people, and it kind of throws you off kilter a little bit if it's not done the way it needs to be done. And this person, and I'll use her words, she said, I've gotten back on the wagon, I've had my medication redone, and I need to come. Really does not want to work with me about this meeting consumer. And I said, well, do you think that I'm really ready? And then I looked at the counselor and I said, do you think you can work with this consumer? And he said, with one. And I've gotten back done the way, and had a Huntsville and can. And
they're not on the same level. Can you get a different counselor? Can you request?
Yes, you sure can. And a lot of times when we've sat down at the table, and I'll give this example, and this has been years ago, and it happened up in the Huntsville area. And the person that I was working with had a mental illness, and sometimes with medication, medication sometimes has to be changed. And trying to be very cool and collect. I think back to Montgomery 3.5 hours later, it dawned on me, that counselor did the best thing that he could have done for that consumer. For some reason, there was some reason that counselor just didn't feel that he was adequate to work with that consumer. Maybe she rubbed him the wrong way. Maybe there was something. And how would it have been had he continued working with her and not providing the services that she really needed?
Yeah.
And the communication not being anything for her. Notice that is one situation where it was kind of severe, I thought. And then another situation where we've come in way back when, and sometimes you're going to different jobs, and you've got the names of all the people in your mind, and you're going through them, and so when you get back, you don't tell that person everything that you've done. And so therefore, if that consumer doesn't know that you've done that, out of sight, out of mind, they don't think you've done anything at all.
Yeah.
Well, I knew some of the things that this counselor had done, and so I was able to share, yes, they are in your corner, they're doing this, this, and this. There is still a procedure that has to be done, but they are in your corner, and that worked. That continued to work, and we were able to save that relationship. There have been times that says, no, I really just cannot work with this counselor. And so I'll look at the supervisor at that time, and I'll say, can we change, counselors? And most of the time it's been granted. Now, if there's a consumer that comes in and they they don't like that counselor, and the whole scenario of what the situation is at that time.
I imagine you're a very motherly figure.
He had not done from 150 to 300 sometimes. And I know that occasionally they tried to go in and clean out. And when I say clean out, for those consumers that are not responding to emails, that are not responding to texts or phone call, I've had to cancel or whatever, there comes a time that counselors need to cut out some of that, because there are people from
part of a Facebook group, and they just did a cleanse there. They're like, hey, these people have a group.
I just wasn't participating. Then they don't need to keep the case open.
Engage with your customers. How do you at phone?
I do all of the gamut. A lot of rehab all with to deny. And if it's a gray area, I can work real well with gray area.
Yeah, I might just bet the wind blew it.
Started out working with the speech and hearing impaired and doing job development. And I love that I still have that connection with that population.
I think that's awesome. We had an opportunity to be at ADRS last week with Mr. Badarius Bell and Rocky Truman.
Yes.
Josh Brewer and Dan Putnam. I hope I said that all right. But that was an awesome broadcast.
Rocky's a lot of fun, isn't he?
Yeah, he had me. In areas of focus where the person is, maybe has some family help going on there. Are questions around SDS?
Sometimes, I don't have a lot of people that come out of independent living. I just don't. But if they call, I know a lot of people may contact me and say, "Hey, I need to file for my Social Security. How do I go about doing that?" I can give them some information. I did try to fill out one time some papers for correct them and say, you really need to get a lawyer. But also, vocational rehab has with it because it's extra money because social so and they already, even though we pay a lot out in Social Security overall, it's not a lot of money to live on. And people want to earn a little bit of money to kind of do a few extra things or even just to live a little bit better. Money to kind of need to live on a lot out in Social Security overall, it's not a lot of money to live on. And people want over because Social Security, even though we pay a lot out in Social Security overall,
102,
it's not a lot of money to live on.
1,
And people want to earn a little bit of money to kind of do a few extra things or even just to live a little bit better.
Go to the movies once a month or
That's
something.
exactly right. And then also to be out in the community and work. Well, I
Yeah. That's still tough to make it.
it is.
And you're going to be sitting at home not working, wallowing about it. Yeah.
They can, and the benefit.
What's the big, or what do you wish people asked more often?
Some of the things that I think is how can I communicate better? How can I communicate better with VR? How can I let them know really what I need? And guiding them how to, ask and get the services that they're wanting and getting rehab to respond to them in a manner that help them really get where they want to go. People don't want just and
That's like,
get you a job doing this. Well, that's not really what I want to do. Well, then what do you want to do? And that's when you open up that dialogue, and that's when you get the evaluations. That's when you get all that other information to help plan to be. Oh gosh, off the top of my head, I think for me it's been experience. Sometimes you listen to things and it helps that if I would hear negative, you're not really selling best for the consumer.
things that you would like to see more of.
Yes. And you have some members are not able to succeed as well as others.
I read, I don't know who said it, and it may be way off, but this information community
Is right there with them who advocate once they finish school and in employment.
All
Those
right.
that are out
That's
there
enough
advocating
clipping.
for them. And I've heard this from many.
some of your potential customers.
Well,
Okay, so if we go to YouTube and we go to B31.Rachel Hughes say cap. And we go to filter by video. No results found. Filter by... Why is that not coming up? Go to YouTube. We'll go to your channel. We'll go to videos. We'll go to Rachel Hughes.
school system, but she heard her and she
Don't
advocated
want to go
for her.
full screen. Why isn't that pulling up if I do that? B31 Rachel Hughes. No, I don't. Wow, YouTube, your search algorithm is horrible. Look at this. Look at this. 50 Nelson Mandela Day with SACAP is coming up with 50 views posted 2 years ago. Doesn't include the word Rachel Hughes. What if I put this all in parentheses? Does it need to come up there? We found right view call. Why am I getting ads in search results? This is YouTube. This is really bad. Look at this. Look at this. No more results. This video literally says B31 Rachel Hughes. I'm just going to copy, and paste it here word for word. Now it comes up. Why? You have to go to the exact thing. You know what? Let me try edit video. And I'm going to get rid of the dots. No, you know what? I'm going to go this B31 dot saycap dot Rachel Hughes. Save. I should also put when we broadcast this. And when was that? Let's go back to Alabama Care, Rachel Hughes. And we are looking for videos. This was on June 18th, 2019. On June 18th, 2019. Now, I want to know if I go back in here and say Rachel Hughes SICAP. Look at that. Nothing in the search results. Oh my gosh. Even if I put a filter on it, which is an extra step that most people won't do, a video type. No search results found. You have to type in the exact thing. I'm gonna go to Google. Let's see Google. Let me see B31 Rachel Hughes SACAP. And I'm going to go to more. No, I don't even have an option. I don't even have an option for videos on Google. This is crazy. Oh my goodness. Let me try B31 dot Rachel Hughes. No, still you have to have it exactly. Watch, and I'll put SACAP here. Ridiculous. What? Why? Why is that?
Stating that she wanted to go to a regular classroom.
Okay, so what if I do B31 SACAP Rachel Hughes? That lady has every word there. Let me type in Alabama Care as well. Let me see what happens. Okay, so you got to type in Alabama Care by it. Let's type in Alabama Care. No, come on now. Let's type in Alabama Care vocational evaluation. All right, it does come up. So you got to type in Alabama Care before everything. Kind of like Reddit.r. That's crazy. All right, well that's our stream for today. So now we have to go through and change all of these, which you do by going back to here. We can get out of that view. We want to pull this to the right. We want to keep this up. Can we pull that to the right? And we're going to say, where are our comments? Why are the comments 15, 18? Look at this. Why? Why are they all different? Oh, this is a really tough thing. This is a really they're not in descending order when I posted them, and nobody's commented or liked. So why would they be in a different order? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. All right, we're done today. We will end stream.